What's going on, everybody? Happy Thursday evening to everybody. As you can see on the screen, it is the official debut of our show on Thursday. Me and 49er Plus podcast doing the thing, as the Macho Man would say, doing the thing, and talking some 49ers, mostly what's going on with the team, and we'll kind of dive a little bit into the Patriots. It's man, just from Monday, me and you were talking. A lot of stuff has happened. So I don't know if you want to have anything to say to add to the beginning, or if you want to just jump right into the topics.
Well, no, we could jump right in. Glad to be here. Excited that this is going to be our Thursday spot. So that's really cool. And I didn't realize it on Monday unless something changed, but I love the intro and the music you have in the intro. It's giving me like an X-Files vibe. Remember that show?
This
Like
one, the one I just did.
yeah. I
So
either I didn't know.
it's a
Go ahead.
remake. It's a non-copyright version of the intro from Stranger Things.
Oh, okay. Okay. I watched Stranger Things too. My mind should have went there for whatever reason. I went X-Files, but similar genre. So we'll take it.
Yeah, I freaking love that show. It sucks that it's the final season's coming, but it's I had a lot of reservations when I went and watched it, and then I watched it and I was addicted. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my god, this is incredible. Not that it's just because it's the '80s and I grew up, I was a small kid in the '80s,
Oh,
but
same. Yeah.
it was like awesome. It's a really good show. It's gonna be sadder to go. I know they're doing a spin-off called like The Burrows or something, some other
Oh, right. I read
sci-fi
about
type
that.
thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'll be interesting to see what that is too. But yeah, let's talk 49ers. Let's talk kind of the big giant elephant in the room. Christian McCaffrey went to
Germany.
Germany.
Yeah.
Get looked at, and it looks like he could be out the next couple of months with his Achilles situation. At least that's the rumor.
That
I
was
don't know.
that, and that was wild to see. One of my buddies sent me a link towards that. And when I went into the article, it was someone that interviewed an orthopedic surgeon or somebody somewhere like it. So it wasn't the person that McCaffrey saw. So it is speculation on how long he's going to be out for. But then I just saw before we popped on, I don't know if I guess Shanahan was either had a press conference or had a radio interview about, said something like he's seen all the specialties he can see. We're going to give him another couple of weeks to rest, and then we're going to see where he's at. So I don't believe that, when Shanahan was asked, like, do you know what doctor he saw? Like, there's no way you don't know what your one of your top players, where he's going, who he's seeing, why he's seeing them, didn't get the report already. Like, I don't believe that. But I mean, not that they're going to push him, but, maybe there is the possibility that he comes back before the bye, although it wouldn't make sense unless they drop, two of the next four, two of the next three or something, and they really need to win against Dallas. Giving him that extra week to get right probably makes sense. But yeah, the 2 months thing, I mean, everybody goes to worst case scenario when it's someone that actually didn't look at McCaffrey. You just got to take it with a grain of salt, like everything on social media.
I stand corrected. I'm glad that you were able to decipher that for me. I went based off of it. I saw a couple people repost it who I respect. So be careful what you post and be careful what you retweet and what you go with, because it's not always true.
And be careful what you put in headlines. I mean, I'm in advertising. I mean, it's pharmaceutical advertising, so it's not sexy by any means, but a lot of folks don't read past the headlines, man. And even nowadays, articles on Yahoo or whatever, not even sports related, they'll have like the 3 bullets up top, just in case you don't have the actual minute and a half to read to read the entire article. Here's the 3 things you have to take away from it. I'm like, oh man, this is why nobody has attention spans nowadays. But listen, and again, all conjecture until McCaffrey even gets back on the practice field. And it looks like it's probably at least, 2 weeks away per Shanahan. And he's been known to fib a little bit too. So we'll see.
Shanahan's been a little bit crusty this week. He's been a little bit salty. I was trying to find the Monday press conference for my show with Raj, because Raj likes to post stuff up. RSF 49ers, for all you who don't know who he is. And I couldn't get it. Probably shouldn't have anyways, because it would have been like copyright or whatever, even though I'm not monetized anymore. But he was not having a good conversation with the media. Matt Mayoka, who is they love him. Him and Barrows are like 2 of the top guys that have been reporting for the 49ers. And I don't know what Mayoko was trying to get at, or what kind of. It was a weird question, and Shanahan's like, I have no idea what you just said.
It was fine. I wound up first reading about it, then I'm like, all right, this sounds odd, like, because it was, when you read it, it almost sounds like Shanahan was snarky or dismissive. And he did laugh at Mayoko. And the question was basically, do you prepare for coverage busts? And he's like, well, and eventually he did answer. He's like, well, that would be kind of impossible. Like, if you have 4 or 5 people in the route, do you have to prepare for like all the permutations? Do you have to prepare for everything that's going on in the bus? So he's like, no, those are off script plays. Whatever happens, happens. And that was just going back to the whole play where Brock missed Ayuk on that potential bomb. That was a bust. And Brock could have been looking somewhere else. But I stand by Shanahan's explanation of that. It's like, well, what are you going to say? If the X receiver busts, what do you do? If the Y receiver busts, what do you do? If the tight end, that'll be impossible for your entire playbook. So I understand why he laughed. And it definitely is one of those, just like anything, when people take a clip out of context, especially in politics, you got to listen to the whole thing to get it. And I'm okay with him laughing. And I like and respect Mayoko a lot, but I think Kyle gave the right response to that, actually.
This is a interesting time for the 49ers because, they're they're coming off the Super Bowl last year, and they're in a little bit of a who are they moment right now. Like, in these next couple of games, like, we're going to kind of get a real feel for this team. And so, like, I expect anything and everything from snarky coaches to players not wanting to talk to the media to, I don't know, like, after the game on Sunday, we all know, like, Juwan Jennings had a huge game. They lost. The way they lost was just horrible. He didn't speak to the media after the game. So, like, not everything's rosy in San Francisco right now, but if you've lost, we've lost 2 Super Bowls in the last, 4 years, 4 or 5 years. It's definitely, I felt it in the preseason. I thought there was a little bit of a different kind of weird vibe. Tom Tolbert said that he felt something off. It just doesn't feel right, from the injuries to the holdouts to just, the feeling of like being there once again and not being able to close the deal. There's this, I don't know. How do you feel about that? Okay, so like I watched the first game and I was like, okay, I'm kind of getting rid of my vibes. I'm like, everything seems business as usual with the 49ers. And then these last 2 games have really kind of brought that feeling back to me. What was your feeling? Because you said to me when we talked in private that, like, you don't get so upset after games. You still have to live and do your thing. But were you vibing any type of vibe in the off season or even in the draft or, preseason about how you felt about this team?
Well, that was before the Rams game. The Rams game epically aggravated me for a multitude of reasons that they just shouldn't have dropped that game. But yeah, I try to be a little bit more chill now. I don't know if my wife or kids would totally agree with that across the board, not sports related. I think the off season, you go back to like the 2020 season before the injuries, where what was it being? It was being called like the revenge tour. I forget the exact nomenclature that they used for that.
Yep.
And they didn't go that route this time. And I believe, I'm superstitious. I'm like, all right, cool. It's just about finishing the job. It's not about revenge on anybody other than ultimately the Chiefs, who they do have on the schedule. The vibe through the off season early on, I think was normal. Like, there was still, you knew Ayuk wasn't going to sign in March or April or May. You knew it was going to drag out because that's what they do. The Trent Williams thing was somewhat new. McCaffrey didn't really get hurt until July or beginning of August, whatever it was going to be. So there were no signs, and I wasn't there. I know a lot of content creators, God bless, go to training camp. I'm just not able to, or actually want to travel across the country to go see training camp. Yeah.
Too.
So, I don't know. I didn't really I just had a sense of, right, it's a top 3 roster. Detroit's on the come. So is Green Bay. Philly should bounce back. Dallas is imploding. It felt like, okay, it was going to be a business as usual, get to your like 11 or 12 wins and make some noise in the playoffs. But as I think preseason unfolded, I think that's when everyone started to make comments about how it's not feeling the same way. And who knows how exactly like the locker room felt. But when you have an Ayuk situation and then Trent Williams, and then you're bringing in new people and a new coordinator, I can understand it. But, winning's going to cure a lot of the ills, and a winning streak, at least 2 in a row, I would consider a winning streak, could do that too. And it starts Sunday with New England. So there's a lot of things that they can put behind them with the win, but it's not going to solve everything. And I know we're going to get there talking about the game. they win by 3, I'll be happy, but they should win by 33.
Yeah. I guess my question is, like, after getting so close again and not getting it, the grind, do they have it within them to go through the grind again to get back there? And I don't know. I listened to some interviews during the offseason. Some players just seem kind of like, even Fred Warner at some points, like you listen to him talk and you could just feel the pain in his voice, even though he was, fully invested into 2024. I guess my question internally, because as a fan, just from a fan's perspective, that grind, you can feel it as a fan. Like, just, man, they had so many things go right for them last year, and they didn't have a ton of really big time injuries. And just, the playoffs worked out, even though they had to come back in both games. And then they were up again in the Super Bowl just to have it kind of fall out of their grasp right at the end. Do players, let alone fans, have the ability to go through that grind again? And I don't know. I watch his team and I'm not sure. I don't have that vibe like I did last year.
And in all sports, like you hear about, the longer you play into the postseason, the more mileage on the body. And going
Mhm.
back from 2019 outside of 2020, they've been either in the championship game or the Super Bowl. So that extra game, 2 or 3 or 4 on the body has got to wear on them. I mean, these are like car crashes every time people are colliding. So from a physical standpoint, who knows how long it takes them to kind of bounce back from long season on top of long season on top of long season. The mental and emotional standpoint, you want to spin it that they're going to come back hungrier, like that it's about unfinished business and it's about slamming the door on the Chiefs or whoever it is in the playoffs, not letting anybody come back. But that's the goal of like Lynch or the job of Lynch and Shanahan and others and team leaders to keep people motivated and hungry. And I know last time we talked on Monday said, our players getting fat and happy. Hopefully not. That's not the case. I mean, someone like a Trent Williams made a whole lot of money already, and it's nice that he's going to make a whole lot more. So like his mentality at 36 years old should be, I want a ring. Like Bosa, like, anybody, Samuel, like they're fortunate that they've had 2 cracks at the apple. Dan Marino got to 1, thought he was going to get back, never did. So it's that hunger should always be there, because nothing, no matter how good this team looks on paper, and against the Rams last week, they look really good on paper, nothing's guaranteed. So you got to come back with that same hunger, but I'm sure it's got to be discouraging at some point. It's got to be.
I listened to Bosa say that he had like a really hard time sleeping this week.
Yeah. Yeah.
After, losing the way that they did, and he doesn't like losing and all that stuff. And they're saying all the right things. Honestly, they're saying all the right things, but really when it comes down to it, it's the next crack they get on the field is against the Patriots on Sunday at 4 whatever time, 4:25, whatever.
Mhm.
This is a team that is a beatable team. The Patriots, they're not very good, especially on the offensive side. They're not real talented. They're 1-2 just like us. Like, this is the game where you have to take care of them in this game. You have to beat them. Like you said, sliding by 3 won't give me a ton of confidence. Like, if you're barely beating like a bottom of the league roster, at least right now, I'm sure they'll be good in a couple of years again. Maybe not. Hopefully not. They were good long enough. It's like when the Niners were good for a really long time and then we sucked. Nobody felt bad for us. So I don't feel bad for the Patriots either. But we'll see on Sunday. I mean, we have a team that we should beat. And the schedule, other than Kansas City, lines itself up to where we could get back on track. But they have to execute. Like, offensively, they executed, but defensively, they played like trash in the last game. Special teams was horrible. So, like, got to go out and do it.
Yeah, Shanahan went back and said, "Oh, reading through a press conference, I don't think we had the right formation called on that fake punt." And I tried to go back to like see in different angles, like, were they in a punt safe? Were they not? And I still can't tell. I don't think they were, because I don't think someone picks up 6 yards on a run if they're lining up basically like a 4-3, whatever that's worth. But it was interesting hearing Shanahan, and this is mainly due to the Hargrave injury, right? That what was the exact quote? Something like, we've got to turn other things around schematically, which shouldn't have taken a Hargrave injury to do. So whether that means more 5-man lines, I mean, this is a team in New England that their number one goal is going to be to establish the run. Like they're going to throw Stevenson and Gibson. These are two backs that are like 225 plus at that line until they can stop them. And I'm sure it's funny. It's one of those, here's what we're going to do. I'm New England. We're going to run the ball. San Francisco knows that they're going to want to run the ball. Who's going to win? Right. And I don't know what the word win is. Is it keeping New England under 100 yards rushing, under 125, under 75, whatever it may be? But to not have such ridiculous gashes and getting New England staying ahead of the sticks, 2nd and 6, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, making it easily convertible for Jacoby Brissett. It's going to be strength on weakness, and then the other way, the Patriots passing offense is weakness on weakness for the Niners, the pass defense. Yes. So would we be shocked if the Niners D struggles? Yes and no. Yes, because they shouldn't against this team, but no, because any statistic you look at, this is not a good defense right now.
They were going against Tutu Atwell and a bunch of nobodies last week, and they couldn't get off the field, especially on 3rd down and even on 4th down. That's just pathetic on so many levels. You imagine, like was it Raj I asked, or was it Bashar? What do you think the score would have been if those guys would have played? The Niners might have gotten boat raced last week.
Yeah, and they're 30th in the league on 3rd down conversions, 53%. Like that. I mean, it's not going to cut it. They're allowing, and I found this for my earlier Thursday show. They're allowing 6.1 yards per play, pass or run. Every time a team hikes the ball against San Francisco, they're averaging 6 yards. Like that. And again, that's ranked 30th too. It is unacceptable. Not because people and we are expecting more out of this Niner defense, because it's not the same roster for the past couple of years, but the same stars, the same star players. But shockingly unacceptable given the defensive coordinator situation and thinking that, well, from Steve Wilks, we could only go up.
Yep.
Steve Wilks might have won that game last week against the Rams. So he might have. But
we all wanted him ran out of town, and apparently so did the players, right? That was the falling on the sword after the Super Bowl. Nobody fell on the sword for the Super Bowl. They let Wilks fall on the sword after the Super Bowl, which I thought was kind of weak. Because you still got to play to make the plays that are called on the field. I don't like this thing where we were in the right position. I'm like, dude, you've played professional football enough. Go out there and figure out a way to get off the field on 4th down when a quarterback's running right at you. Like, I don't want to hear it. And go ahead. No, I just felt it was weak sauce. That, I mean, should he have gotten fired? Probably. But the vibe from the players, with some of the comments that they made after the Super Bowl, and it was like, I just thought it wasn't fair. I thought you should own it. You lost. Take the L and freaking move on, instead of like little sideways remarks towards, being in the wrong place or this, that, and the other. I don't know. I felt that was really low ball. And then the fact that, like, now they have the guys supposedly that all the players wanted in the building, and they're even worse.
Well, at least Warner and Bosa are saying the right things. I don't know if Demo or Ward have come out and said anything. I haven't heard anything from like Floyd or any of the new additions. And Wilks, for the most part in the Super Bowl, like, he called a great first half. Kansas City adjusted, he didn't. But then once you got into the 4th quarter and overtime, he might have only had a handful of like questionable play calls. That overtime when they had the Chiefs at like 2nd down and 13 or 14, when they threw like a bubble screen to Valdez-Scantling and he got tackled for a 4-yard loss, and they had their entire secondary 10 yards off the ball in the next play, and the Chiefs just took 7 quick yards to not have everybody up on the line of scrimmage on 4th and 1. Like that was the biggest thing that I think people don't talk enough about. They had the Chiefs 4th and 1 up 3 in overtime and did not just sell out to stop the run. Like, even if you gave up a touchdown there, it would have been worth the risk reward ratio, because if you had stuffed them, you win. Your defense is on the field and you win the Super Bowl. So Wilks, should he have been fired? Overall, probably. But if Sorensen keeps performing, or the defense with Sorensen leading it keeps performing in a similar fashion to what we've seen the first 3 weeks, he should be gone too. Like, they shouldn't be playing favorites. And then they should look at we shouldn't have an internal hire, and maybe we should look at evolving the cover 3, whatever you want to call it, a little bit, because now it's 2 years in a row where something's not clicking.
They're I totally forgot what I was going to say about defense. Ooh, it was right on the tip of my tongue. I was listening to you talk.
Something. There's a lot to say about defense. Just throw anything out. We'll go nuts on it.
I'm not a big fan of the two guys running the defensive scheme kind of thing. And like, I feel like they always say, like, if you have two quarterbacks, you have none.
Yeah.
If you have two defensive coordinators, you have none. I feel like this was the point that was made the other day. So I don't really deal with them anymore. But Larry Krueger always said it's a meritocracy, right? How your roster is built. Where you're drafted doesn't matter. If you help the team win, regardless if you're undrafted or you're a first rounder, you're on the field, right? I feel like it's that way with the coaching too, or it used to be that way with the coaching, but now, just like with the players, we got players that make this roster who shouldn't make this roster, like a Trent Taylor, even if it's on the practice squad. And it's all based on who you know on the roster. And I think that's ridiculous because I feel like the defense, like you said, go and get somebody outside the building. Go and get somebody who is not this whole, well, we don't want to change things for the players. You know, it's worked for a long time, blah, 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 blah. Listen, the only team that really ran this particular defense to perfection was that Legion of Boom defense. Yeah. Once in a lifetime, ain't never going to be like that again. The rules are even more in favor of the offense now since when that thing spawned. But yeah, I just don't like the feeling that like he took the bullet for this whole squad. And now it's like I tweeted the last couple of weeks ago, like, put up or shut up, man. I don't want to hear any excuses. You got the guy on defense that you wanted, and you're underperforming even worse than you ever did with Wilkes. So what's the problem? You know, what's the malfunction, as they say in that movie Full Metal Jacket? Like, what is going on with you guys? Like, I don't understand it.
And Dan Quinn tried to take the cover 3 to Atlanta, right? Like he ran it with a moderate success. I mean, he got to the Super Bowl, but that's because Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, and the running backs and Shanahan coordinating that.
Yep.
And then up 28-3, the cover 3 falls apart in the second half, or at least the mid third quarter on. So it wasn't all on Shanahan, even though he couldn't score. Like the Falcons couldn't keep him out of the end zone. And then Quinn brings it to Dallas, and the Dallas defense wasn't anything to write home about the past couple of years. And Mike Zimmer's not doing much better right now. I don't think the Niners need to be wed to a specific scheme. They can be multiple. And have principles of the cover 3. But if they think, they have a better secondary now to play a little bit more man, or they have the ability to blitz more with Hufanga now, because who knows if he's going to be on the roster next year with the salary cap and stuff. I don't know how creative they're going to get. And I agree with you, the whole, if you have two coordinators, you have none. I don't know how bad it could get for Staley to take over the play calling duties from Sorensen. He's only a coordinator for 1 year in Los Angeles. They had the number 1 ranked defense. He goes to San Diego and everyone thinks he doesn't know defense anymore because he was the head coach. The Chargers defense has just been bad, but better now under Harbaugh. Evolving, evolve or die. And I think Shanahan has evolved, somewhat as an offensive play caller, and I think he's gotten out of his own head at times. He is stubborn with some things, but again, this is not the defense that gives you the most trouble, Kyle. It's a Jim Schwartz led defense in Cleveland, and it's a Brian Flores defense led in Minnesota. And they stymied you guys last year when you were essentially fully healthy without Debo and Trent Williams. There's something to be said for looking into what gives you problems now, not what gave you problems maybe 7 or 8 years ago.
Ryu Ken says, I'm losing hope this season. We suck. Players don't care.
Other than that, everything's fine.
I'm not quite there yet, but I have felt all those things, maybe either all at the same time or separately, but we got to give it a little bit more time, Ryu. We can't jump off the Titanic yet. It's got to go under the water just a little bit more before we start, bailing out. So go ahead.
But still, my 2 favorite Street Fighter characters. So I have to give you credit there. Tried to play it at an arcade a week or so ago. I was out and they had a Street Fighter 2 arcade. I'm just so bad with like the normal joystick. Much better with the cross pad on the Super Nintendo. But props to the username, big time.
Well, how old are you? I'll be 45 in December.
46.
Okay, so we're right on the same age.
But yeah, no,
Older,
that was totally my jam. Like it's a shame not to go off on a video game tangent, but how
whatever.
kids nowadays will never know the whole, putting the quarter on the screen, saying that you got next. And for a game like Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, NBA Jam, NFL Blitz, granted, I can't think back to 30 years, but when you had about a dozen quarters lined up, how the hell did we remember where we were in line? Like who, second, third, sixth, 10th, whatever. But quite the experience, and I will always give anybody that's giving Street Fighter 2 a nod back.
Exactly. One thing that we found out both before the stream today was that we already have Hargrave out for the season with the triceps injury, and now Jordan Elliott limited in practice, and defensive tackle already thin position. Defensive line in general already thin. Who steps up? I mean, now it's wow. People want to make comparisons to 2020. It's a fair comparison. Guys are dropping like flies, and now it's even in practice. Like players can't even make it through practice.
No, I mean, the only thing I'll take away from that Jordan Elliott injury was that he was limited in practice. So it doesn't sound like he hurt it in practice. Maybe it's something preventative. God forbid any of us be optimistic versus, and I'm generally pessimistic or not like yeah, everything's going to be okay type of person.
We're New Yorkers or you're Jersey, but like I'm a New Yorker. I'm always negative.
Jersey's the armpit of the nation. There's not much when it comes to traffic and people in general in this area that I can be optimistic about, other than meeting and conversing with other 49er fans. It's going to be a war of attrition on the line. I mean, I'm not going to say good thing, right? Because it's not a good thing. But if Collins is healthy, if Elliott can play, you still have Givens on the 53, and then you have Evan Anderson and T.Y. McGill, and they brought back Shackle Brown, 3D tackles on the practice squad. So you can elevate each one 3 times. So they can rotate each one of those 3 guys for the next, say, 6 weeks, and they still have Kalia Davis on IR to return. So there's, if you want to call it fresh legs, even though he's coming back from, I think, knee surgery. So there could be a reinforcement on the way. Free agent wise, there's really not much out there unless someone like Hassan Ridgeway gets you excited. And I didn't go so far as like looking at every team's practice squad to see if there's a D tackle they could sign. Maybe, and this is, again, if you want to be glass half full, and this is a reach, but Hargrave is not a run stuffer, right? He's more of a penetrator, a pass rushing type of defensive tackle. If this injury shores up the run defense a little bit, I'll take that trade-off because the rush with Hargrave wasn't anything to write home about for the last year and 3 games anyway.
Yeah, it wasn't like he was blowing quarterbacks up. So, what about a guy like Ndamukong Suh? Would you make a move at him at his age?
So listen, he's still an animal. I mean, it doesn't hurt to reach out and ask, right? You might as well kick the tires. I mean, at this point, reach out to Aaron Donald. Who cares? I mean, what was it? The worst thing that can happen is he says no. Like that's fine. But yeah, we'll see after the Patriot game, assuming the Patriot game goes to plan and they win by some amount. Hopefully they cover. I didn't bet on it, but they should cover the spread at 10.5. That if it looks bad again, run defense wise, and it might be to be expected. People use the Hargrave excuse, but if it looks bad again against a one-dimensional offense that they should really clamp down on, yeah, then they might need to start making some calls.
Are you fearful that the Niners, if they do have a good game against the Patriots, they'll let their foot off the gas and think everything is fixed? Or do you think they're of the mindset that even if we go out there and boat race the Patriots, we still have to continue to, be better than we were, say, the second and third week of the season? Because I seen that tweet where somebody was like, watch the Niners go and win this game handily against a bad team and then think everything is solved just to be kind of like reintroduced to all the problems the following week or something. What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, I'm with you. I mean, if they blow the doors off like 45-3, I mean, that's, I think, beyond the scope of what anybody thinks should happen based on how San Francisco's looked the past 2 games, right?
Right.
But even a 27-10 game, 27-13, that's still covering the spread. That's still winning by 2 scores that you should feel good about, but it wouldn't instill a ton of confidence because, again, like, how does it look? Is it a 10-point game in the fourth and they score a touchdown to go up 17 with a couple minutes to go to ice it away? Like, is the game in doubt for a half, or are the Patriots keeping it closer for longer than any of us are comfortable with? Optics are going to be a big thing coming out of the games that come Sunday night, Monday, Tuesday, when people start talking about it. So I think anything short of just like a absolutely stepping on their throat and winning by 30 plus, I think is going to be scrutinized maybe more than it should. But in my mind, and I don't know if you agree, but I think rightfully so. I think they have to strangle the Patriots from the jump, give them no hope. Like, once, even if the Niners get up 7-0, like, mentally for New England, it should be like, we're done. Like, that should be the approach that San Francisco
I
has.
thought we were on it last week when we went up 14-0 to the Rams.
Yeah.
I was like, man,
Yeah.
this might be one of those games where I could sit back and everything's going to be back to normal. And man, was I wrong. That was the first time, I think, in a long time that I relaxed watching a game, literally thinking the Niners had it in the bag up 14-0. And then after the game was more depressed than ever. Like, man, I let my mind go there again. Like, they fooled me again. They did it to me again. It's like I always tell people, and I've said this to you on Monday, it's like the bad toxic relationship with the
Yep.
person who's you're not right for. And you keep falling for the same crap and you keep getting hurt, but you keep thinking the next time's going to be different. That's what the Niners did to me in that game. I was like, oh man, they're good. Oh, the Minnesota thing was just a fluke. And then, whatever transpired after, I was just like, now I'm even more mad because I allowed myself to get positive, and I'm usually pretty negative about things. So, Ryu wants to know if we have we do a rebuild after the Patriots game. No, that as far as a rebuild goes, I think there's going to be some retooling after the season. I mean, we got some guys that are aging out. The Kittles and the Devos of the world. I hate to say this because they've been super productive and good for the team. Everybody's fair game at certain points because, like, the Walsh 49ers did it. They got rid of players 2 years early instead of 2 years late, and had players come in and step right in, and it was like, nothing was ever missed. It was an easy transition most of the time. You had a guy like Dwight Clark in his twilight of his career, and then who comes in the door? Jerry Rice, John Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
Not a bad trade-off. He was probably mad that the Niners gave up on him or whatever, but that's people got to remember, sports is a business, and at the end of the day, like, you can't get attached to players. That's why I'm very careful about buying jerseys. It's a business. That's all it is. But as far as a rebuild, they really have to tank it this year. But still, they're not going to just get rid of everybody. They just signed a bunch of players to extensions and stuff. You can't just say, "Oh no, we're going to scrape the books." Like, it doesn't work like that.
I mean, someone like Leonard Floyd, Yetur Gross-Matos, they're signed to 2-year deals, and they were like relatively modest, $10 million a year. They traded for Malik Collins. He reworked his contract, so his cap hit's a little bit higher next year, about $11 million. But if he works out well, they could extend him. And every time an extension happens, you're lowering the cap hit in the future, and you're tacking on years and money on the back end. So someone like a Kittle, someone like a Warner, I still think they are candidates for extensions. I mean, Kyle has proven since 2017 he can't find another tight end to save his life. So the idea like Kittle might go somewhere, to me, is unless his body completely breaks down, right, is shocking, because Kyle doesn't trust anybody else. He's the best all-around tight end in the league, and they have literally no other option. And to think that hypothetically, like, if they let go of Kittle in the offseason and they're going to draft a tight end, like, is Kyle's going to play him from day one? Of course he's not. So someone like Kittle, someone like Warner, extending them drastically reduces the cap hit. And I think the whole idea of, last dance and Brock's going to get paid and this team's going to look drastically different next year. It'll look different because there's free agents, and they're going to have to fill positions with draft picks and other free agents, and they will re-sign some of their own. But Brock's extension, when he gets extended, that first year, that cap hit may be like $20 million. And I've talked about it previously on my podcast. If anyone wants to go look at Trevor Lawrence's contract, now I know he sucks. I know he sucks and he's not playing well, but they extended him to a boatload of money. And when you look at his cap hits for like the first 4 years, they're all wildly reasonable and all well under obviously what his annual salary is. So the Niners are not going to be in a blow it up or break it up type of mode. I think the most interesting player after this season, no matter what happens, Super Bowl win, miss the playoffs, out in the divisional round, is Debo. Like, he'll have one year left after this year. Do they trade him and get something for him? How does Pearsall look? Will Cowing ever get on the field? So I don't think it's a blow up or a rebuild. But they do have to make tweaks and think like long term. Like, salary is going to be a thing because Brock is going to be making money and Ayuk's going to be making more money as it goes on. But I think that whole they're not going to be able to put the same team on the field next year thing is ridiculously overblown.
Philadelphia has proved that that's not true.
Yeah.
You can keep putting competitive teams on the field. The way I look at it with Debo is if somehow Pearsall and Cowing both have meaningful snaps this year and they look really good, that Band-Aid is so much easier to pull off next year with Debo.
Yes.
You can say goodbye. Not that like you want him out of here like because you can't stand him. It's just, he's injured a lot. And, what if Pearsall comes in and can do a lot of the same stuff, but can stay healthier and maybe he's even better. He's a better receiver. Debo's not really a quote unquote receiver. He's more of like a geeked up Percy Harvin. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He can catch the ball a little bit. He can run the ball a little bit, all that stuff. But Pearsall kind of comes off like he's more of a refined receiver, but we don't know. Kyle we talked about in the past, like Kyle has this freaking thing up his rear end about playing rookie wide receivers. Well, I don't know what it is.
Think about we're not even close to seeing Pearsall. I mean, independent of the gunshot, and he's on PUP and he's conditioning and in the weight room. I don't technically know if he's actually practicing, probably not, but if the same mentality stands true for why Cowing isn't on the field, and Cowing had the hamstring injury in preseason or training camp, but he played in all 3 preseason games. He's been on the roster these first 3 games, active, hasn't seen the field. What would make any of us think that when Pearsall is eligible to come back week 5, that he's actually going to see there's no way. There's he has to be so far behind whatever mental reps he's getting. That's great, right? But he literally hasn't practiced in a month and a half. So I don't expect, I don't know when we're going to see him, and then Debo will get healthy and Jennings and Ayuk, and he'll be the number 4 receiver at best. But if he has a strong last 9 games of the season, then yes, it makes the Debo conversation very interesting, and even more interesting because they restructured his contract and they basically cut his cap hit in half for next year. So I don't know if that makes him more attractive to another team to trade for or more attractive to stay because he's costing them less. We're not even close to that, but it's just fun stuff for me to think about and read in bed, going to overthecap.com when I'm looking to kill time and make my eyes tired.
The one team that I think Debo could transition to and play probably be a team like Miami. I think he could go to Miami and be really, really effective. Just again, the health thing, man. Like, you can't invest a ton of money in that guy. So you're right. Maybe that cap hit, because it's lower, people will say, okay, I'm willing to take the hit on this guy because it's not bad on the books. Because if it was a full contract with the way he misses games, the regularity that he misses games with, you don't touch a guy like that.
But I'm with you. Trade him to the AFC, man. Don't get him out of conference. If you're going to trade him,
out of
conference. Get him out of conference.
Brock Purdy, most 130 passer rating games in the first 3 years in NFL history. Think he has another great game this week? I think he does.
I do too. And oh, by the way, because I saw that stat and talked about it. First three seasons for him is a total of 24 games, right? He only played half the season 2022, not even. Full 16 games last season, didn't play the last game against the Rams, and 3 games this season. So what he did in 24 games, you're measuring against other quarterbacks who might have played 48 games, 16 games times 3, or 51 games, 17 games times 3. Super impressive, but it's not, I always go back to, it's not splashy. It's not sexy. His draft position hurts him. But I guarantee you, if Caleb Williams or CJ Stroud or Jordan Love, if he was healthy, or hell, even Anthony Richardson, Bo Nix, ran around the way that Brock did, making plays, getting horizontal, stretching the ball out to get a first down, it would be all over SportsCenter and social media. But because it's Brock, and they lost. I mean, maybe if they won the game, a little bit more love. They lost the game, but Mr. ridiculously consistent and efficient. And again, like, there's no doubt he gets the bag after the season. No matter what San Francisco does, he gets the bag. He deserves it. It's just a matter of it is over 60 million. I don't know.
Right. I keep looking at him. You watch him, you look at him, he's just not a big guy. He doesn't have a huge arm. It just doesn't make sense that he's as good as he is, considering all the checks that are against him. Like, I look at him, I'm like, man, he's like this squashy little guy, like running around. He doesn't have a huge arm, and yet he's accurate. He's on time. He's a good leader. Like, you see him after the game, even though he lost, he's not slamming his helmet on the ground. He's not flipping out on guys. I would. I mean, I have a temper. Like, the fact that he's able to keep his composure, and that's probably why he's a professional athlete and I'm not. It's really impressive. He doesn't pout. He's not a pouter. A lot of these big time quarterbacks, when they have a bad game or a bad couple games or a bad half a season, they sit there and they cry and they pout in the corner. He does none of that. He does all these like weird things. What's that?
Which had to been he stood up for Ronnie Bell, which had to been maybe one of the most difficult things he's ever done in his life. Just given everybody saw it, and he didn't throw him under the bus. And as a leader, you can't do that. You can't. He's saying and doing all the right things.
You can, but it's not a good look.
Right. Oh yeah.
And your coaches will probably rip you behind the scenes. Like, you can't go throwing your guys. Like, I mean, like, I like coaches that are aggressive per se, but I'm not big on players that are, just one part of the team trying to throw other guys under the bus. Like, say you're a cornerback or a wide receiver, like, don't talk about other position groups. Right. Like, just focus on your own stuff. He could technically, but he doesn't. And that's really impressive by him. The other part of the equation last week was Juwan Jennings. Mm-hmm. Do we see another game like that, or is it going to be a little bit closer to what we usually get from him? Maybe like 3-4 catches, 50 yards or something. Does Brandon Ayuk find his sack? And probably should have said that word. Does Brandon Ayuk grow a pair, or at least act like he's interested this week? I don't know, man. If you've been watching like videos of him, man, his body language is just pitiful. Just the way he carries himself, the way he talks. It's like, does he even want to be like, me and Raj had it talking last night. He's like, he acts like he don't want to be a Niner. Like, he doesn't want to be here. Like, that press conference when he got signed, I didn't feel really super encouraged. Like, he was like, yeah, I'm a Niner. Woo. I don't know. What's your take? Cause you say you're a New Yorker, New Jersey, you're kind of a negative person. Are you?
I think the negotiation probably took a lot out of him. And I think he was probably frustrated that it took as long as it did. And he came out and said, right, he's like, I definitely made it more difficult than it needed to be, which, yeah, we know, like, we know all the social media antics. He came out, I think, a couple days ago saying that, not that he was blaming anything. I didn't see him take responsibility for drops. Again, but maybe it was in another part of a clip saying that they're covering me differently now. Like, they know what Brock and I like to do. And I could see that. I could see a Rams team down multiple corners, down a safety, not having as much talent as this team, thinking like, all right, there's no Kittle, there's no McCaffrey, there's no Debo. We're not going to make Ayuk. Ayuk's not going to beat us. Like, we'll roll coverage to him. We'll put Tre'Davious White on him. And I don't know if White shadowed him all game, but he definitely drew Ayuk more than Jennings. And that could free up other people. Juwan Jennings, Eric Saubert, maybe Juice. Forget Ronnie Bell. He was a waste. So if that was the philosophy, great. And it got Ayuk 10 targets. He caught 5, dropped 3, whatever. But the body language isn't great. And I think he knows. He can't watch his own film and go, that's exactly what I wanted to do. Like, he knows, but he's just not being as stand up of a guy about it. But it just, again, it takes one game. But going back to your point, do we see another game like that from Jennings? Probably not. And I'll only say that because I think it's a game where maybe the Niners get up enough early that they lean into the running game more, just to like salt it away, kill the clock, and get out of there regardless of however big the margin winds up being.
I heard what you said in passing about Trevor Lawrence. I know he's not a Niner, and this is a Niners podcast, YouTube channel, whatever. Is it safe to say that Trevor Lawrence is a bust? or that he's just not a really good bro. I mean, like that whole draft class seems like a complete wash, including Trevor Lawrence. What has Trevor Lawrence done that if you had a game to win right now, you wouldn't take Brock Purdy, especially after what Purdy did last week with him and essentially it was just him and Jennings.
Yeah.
If you want to be, kind of a jerk about it, like what would you do if you had to, like, how do you feel about the Trevor Lawrence thing? You made this comment that he sucked or he sucks. How do you what would you say? Do you a bust, or is he approaching bust territory?
I just dropped him recently from my fantasy team, but then again, I did have 3 quarterbacks. I don't know if that's the same team that I had Purdy, and I wound up picking up Fields for the rushing thing. But I had to drop him, and it's not from a lack of talent, right? Like Doug Peterson, good Super Bowl winning coach, right? He's got Evan Ingram and Travis Etienne and Christian, like they have weapons. The way he looked against Buffalo was abysmal, and this season has not been great. The only game, I mean, Lawrence looked terrible against the Niners last year, and that was against the Niner defense again. That you're not talking about really a top 10 unit overall. They got boat race there. The only game he has to hang his hat on is that comeback against the Chargers, which was impressive, but that was also Chargers falling apart, defense being bad, offense took their foot off the gas more so than Lawrence, doing anything. But his contract is a reflection of he was next man up to get paid. So anytime someone is like, you got to just keep pushing, and they'll say, well, we're pushing salaries for the next guy and the next guy and the next guy. Like there's this brotherhood of let's pay everybody, even if we're not that good. Is he approaching bust territory? Bust is such a strong word. Like
it is.
Like that is like Jamarcus Russell owns
Ryan Leaf, Jamarcus Russell. They're very much of the bust. Like if you're going to label somebody, that mean, yeah.
It's a very, Ryan Leaf, it's a harsh word. And I think he did enough to deserve a contract, not that contract. And if Jacksonville starts tanking, Lawrence isn't going anywhere, right? Peterson will be gone. They'll make some changes. But I think the next probably month is going to be very telling for him, because that's a team that what, they're 0-3, right? Like they've dug their own hole, and Lawrence is supposed to be some sort of generational prospect out of Clemson. Hasn't looked even close to that for any stretch in the NFL.
It's funny. The only comparison I make with Trevor Lawrence was that Troy Aikman was drafted really high, right? He was a really talented college quarterback, and he came into the league and he wasn't real good until that Dallas team's maybe like third or fourth year, right? Third year, fourth. And there was talk like, is he the guy? That's the only comparison I could see where a guy was a top player and has all the tools. I mean, he's 6'6". He can throw the ball really far and do all these amazing things, but it's intangibles. Nobody measures intangibles because you can't measure them. Like they're unmeasurable. The thing about Brock that I have when I watch games is a sense of calm and confidence that he's going to figure things out. When you watch some of these young quarterbacks, they look like they're completely shell shocked when they're playing. Like it's just Brock's like this little guy, dude, and then there's Trevor Lawrence, who's like everybody's wet dream quarterback, and he's just not good in big time situations. And he, like you said, last year when we played them, he didn't look real good. He didn't look real good against Buffalo, but you're right. It's a big label to call somebody a bust. And when I say it, I'm not saying it like, haha, you suck.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just like, is he getting there?
He hasn't been worth a number 1 draft pick so far, right? He hasn't transformed that team. And he had Urban Meyer, year 1 as his coach. So that, I'm sure, put him behind the 8 ball. Ugh. But the only thing that's really relevant about either Lawrence, or if we're talking about Jordan Love or Dak, is just that the contracts they got have set the market for whatever Brock's going to potentially ask for, or his agent. And if he wants to, people are thinking like, oh, I don't see Brock as a greedy guy. Maybe he won't ask for $60 million a year. I don't. And if he does, can you hold it against him? Really? But I think the moral of the story is, even when the contract looks so big, like Trevor Lawrence, when those numbers were announced, it's like, oh my God, how did he get that? Why did they give him that? And I'm sure people feel the same way when Brock gets his money. But it's not the salary cap crushing hit that I think people are going to think that it's going to be, that'll let the Niners still field a very, very, very good roster the next 2 or 3 years. And as his salary goes up, so does the cap. So proportionally, I think everything's going to be okay. But if you're asking me right now for Kyle's offense, who do I take, Brock or Lawrence? I'm definitely taking Brock. For Jacksonville's offense, I wouldn't want to put Brock there, but Brock was the right quarterback at the right time for what Kyle wants to do. And it's borne out over, 20 plus games so far.
And then there's all this dialogue that I think we might have even talked about it Monday. Like, he seems like he's the only quarterback in history that's been punished for having talent around him. Aikman had talent around him. Montana had talent around him. Young had talent around him. Elway, Marino at certain parts of his career with the two receivers.
Yeah.
And you're going to punish guys because they have talent around them. Like, well, he's going to have to win it without a bunch of superstars, no Avengers. Like, why would you wish that on any quarterback, to go into a game where you have nobody that can do anything with the ball? When you build the team, do you say, well, the quarterback's really good, so screw drafting receivers, we'll go right the defensive line? Like, nobody does that. I don't understand that line of thinking.
And the only quarterback that I think that line of thinking holds true to, and not the let me see you win with nobody, but someone that won a lot with a lot of nobodies, is Brady. Yeah. Right? Outside of Gronk and Moss and Dante Stallworth and Wes Welker in like the 2007s to early 2010s, he didn't have a star-studded offense, right? Danny Woodhead at running back. Like, he's the only one. Everybody else, there was talent around the quarterback. Maybe when you line up the teams, Montana, Young, Elway, Peyton Peyton Manning was great, but you had Harrison and Reggie Wayne and Dallas Clark and Edge and Joseph Adai. Like, he still would he have been Peyton Manning anyway? Probably.
He had Marshall Faulk early in his career.
Yeah. So it's you. If you want to say that he's got all this talent around him and he's throwing 20 and he looks like Daniel Jones, that's one thing. But when you have all this talent around you and you are an NFL MVP finalist, that's because you're the trigger man. You are elevating others. They are not carrying you because they're not throwing the ball to themselves.
Right. Something that popped up before we went live too was the injury. Unfortunately, the injury to Curtis Robinson, linebacker, lower leg injury. And we already have issues. Well, I was going to ask you, like, if you had to make some decisions as far as how much of a leash you have with Campbell at linebacker and Isaac Yiadom at corner before you pull either of them this coming week. I was going to ask you, what linebacker would you like to see? We have Bethune, we have D. Winters, hopefully, if he's healthy. And a lot of people were, really on the Curtis Robinson bandwagon. Mm-hmm. But now that looks like it's not going to be, no word on what exactly happened to him, but doesn't seem like it's a real positive thing.
Yeah, when it's the cart, it's not good. And it looks like, it was always looking like it was going to be D. Winters as next man up. And I think I read somewhere where even Devondre Campbell was shocked that he was coming out of the Rams game at times and D. Winters was going in. If that was, keeping a veteran fresh or whatever it may be, but then Winters re-aggravated his ankle. Hopefully he's going to be able to play. I would have loved to see what Curtis Robinson can do. Again, like a younger self-made player, undrafted, out of Stanford, practice squad, couldn't crack it until this year, which was great. Bethune's probably a year away. Flanagan Fowles was out there as the third linebacker at times, but he doesn't really get anybody excited. So at this point, man, it's like it's D. Winters or nobody outside of Campbell if Campbell comes off the field. But I think I had some stats like Campbell had a terrible game. You talked about Campbell and Yiadom, right? Like those are the obvious ones. Campbell, 3 targets, 3 catches, 53 yards and a pass interference. Yiadom, 5 targets, 5 catches, 52 yards and a pass interference. So those are the obvious ones that you can make a change on. How comfortable Sorensen or Shanahan would be giving these players the hook, I don't know. But if you do it, this is a good team to do it against. In New England, they're offensively challenged. So this is, I think, a nice training wheels game for some people, and could hide any errors or slip-ups they make because the Patriots really, famous last words, really shouldn't hurt them offensively. But I thought the same way last week.
Interesting. We're talking about some guys that went down on the defensive line earlier, um, and then you look. I saw this stat. It says the Pats O line has a 46% pressure rate versus the rush, or at least they did last week. And the Niners are banged up on the defensive line, so it is going to be one of those like, who's going to crack? Is it going to be the Niners all of a sudden finding their way against a really bad line? We thought they were going to do that last week against the Rams. Didn't happen. I I don't even, I honestly don't know what to think. I don't know what's your thought.
I'm wondering how the 49, I mean, I don't want to say I'm wondering how they're going to generate pressure, because I think New England, as long as they can keep it close, is going to run the ball 30, 35 plus times if they can keep it within even 2 scores. But the Patriots are a team, when you account for sack negative yardage, they are averaging 102 passing yards a game.
Wow.
Which is ridiculous. Jacoby Brissett has not thrown for over 100.
He had like 99 passing yards last week, or under 100.
Yeah, he hasn't thrown for more than 149 in 3 games. Now, all that being said, and I'm being like cynical here, but a little bit truthful, don't you see this as like the Jacoby Brissett coming out game against the secondary? Like, this is the game where he cracks 175 or 200, 225 yards for an NFL quarterback is like baseline. Like, that's nothing, but it would be special for New England. And can't you see that potentially just happening? Like, them looking a little better. Their leading receiver is a tight end, Hunter Henry, and he's got like 140 yards on the year. Everything statistically is saying New England shouldn't do anything. And that very well may be the case, right? Maybe we're just pessimistic and we just want to talk about how bad the Niners defense is, although it is. But until I see it, I can't preach it. Like, I got to see it at least 1 week, even against a terrible offense, like 32nd across the board in a lot of things. But I still, that pessimist in me is like, crap, I wouldn't be surprised if Brissett throws 2 touchdowns and for 225. Like, because look at everything that's come before.
Yeah. We thought that going into Minnesota against Sam Darnold was going to be a given. And Sam Darnold looked like Fran Tarkenton in that game, just throwing all over the place. I'll never understand that. I mean, it's one thing, Darnold, and then it's another thing with Matthew Stafford. I mean, Matthew Stafford is an incredible quarterback. I don't think people realize how good he really is. So the line is 10.5. Again, the line was really high last week, and Niners seem to screw that up too. They're saying all the right things. Like I said, the Pats are offensively challenged. The Niners are defensively challenged. They have a decent defense, but Aaron Rodgers did okay against them last week. So I could see it being a similar game that kind of this past Sunday. To be honest with you, it kind of is feeling like it could be another close in the 20s type of game where the Niners just got to figure out a way to not screw it up at the end, maybe be up 10 or 10 points. I don't feel like the Niners are going to blow the doors off these guys, because I just think their defense, for whatever reason, and we talked about like 8 zillion different reasons why they've been bad. The Niners defense, until proven otherwise to me, doesn't give me a lot of confidence that they're going to keep this, a 3-score game. All the talking by Fred Warner and all the talking about Bosa and all these guys talking until they go out there and just perform and not talk. I don't know what to expect.
And I think I'm wondering if there's like 2 distinctly different feels that these teams have. Like New England coming out of New York, they lost by 21. So the Jets obviously covered. They couldn't do anything offensively. Yards wise, they were held under like 150 or something crazy. They look terrible, right? So how deflating is that? Are they coming out of that Jet game like super motivated, looking at the Niners as a potential get right game, and maybe we can find a little something offensively? Even week 1 against the Bengals, everyone thought that was at the time a major upset. But look, I mean, the Bengals are 0-3. Like that win does not carry the same weight now as it did before, and they didn't look great against the Seahawks, even though they took them to overtime. I'm with you. I have San Francisco winning 27-13. I figure, all right, 2-score game, a touchdown and 2 field goals for New England kind of feels right. The Niners should come out of the Rams game like their hair on fire, angry and pissed. Whereas I think New England is just like deflated, like, all right, we were 1-0, then 1-1, and we lost close, and we got killed by the Jets, and that's probably kind of who we are. Versus the Niners and the Rams game, I can't think anyone on the Niners team is saying that's who we are, like what they did against the Rams. So they should be able to like choke them out in a manner of speaking. And 14 points isn't a blowout by any means. Covers a spread for whoever's out there gambling. Not like you want to take my advice based on my history, but it's not until I see a blow the doors off game, I'm not going to pick a blow the doors off game.
Harry Balzac, Keon White, defensive end, and Antonio Gibson, running back, will probably have big games. I mean, I hope you're wrong, but again, like the Niners just haven't been really oppressive. I really think, though, I mean, the Niners offensive line didn't play too bad in pass protection last week. They only gave up 1 sack. Brock was, for the most part, clean in that game. He took a couple big shots, but I mean, that's quarterbacking in the National Football League. I feel like the Niners defense is going to struggle again this week. I do. I have a feeling, but maybe not to the point that they've been the last couple weeks.
So real fast, the Keon White, I think I looked it up. I think he has four sacks on the season. And if he draws Colton McKivitz all game, that could be a little bit of a problem. Like Antonio Gibson, I think the tandem, the 1-2 punch of him and Ramondre Stevenson could be a problem. And we'll see how much they get Gibson involved in the passing game. But what were you saying right before that? I'm sorry that that the Niners defense was going to, you thought the Niners defense was going to struggle again?
I still think they're going to, I just don't have a really good feeling about them this week. I still think they might have some struggles in this game.
How would you quantify struggles? Like, is there a certain
couple
blown, points or yards? Like, do you think that like, what are you thinking?
More head scratching mistakes, blown coverages, think guys getting behind them. They've been, they're not on their P's and Q's at least yet. And like, I don't know. I just feel, without Dre Greenlaw out there, and the issue with the slot corner situation with Idom, he's bad. He's really bad. So I feel like as long as those two guys are on the field, I still think like, maybe a drawn pass interference could happen again. Like all those things. They don't instill a lot of confidence in me, at least with the other guys. Yeah, maybe they give up some plays too, but I have nothing to go on with the guys that haven't been playing, the Renardo Greens and the D Winners. So like, I can't really go out and say, yeah, I'm feeling like they're going to have a horrible, rough game with Campbell and with Idom. It's been proven over the first 3 games that they are liabilities on this defense from jump, losing Dre Greenlaw was a huge loss.
Go ahead. Sorry, bud.
No, I was going to say losing Dre Greenlaw was a huge loss. And we didn't realize how much that was going to be until now.
Big loss. I mean, and we'll never know how much his presence would or would not have improved the running game or the run defense. Coverage, he has got to be better than Devondre Campbell. What Campbell did last week was obviously not great. And they have enough keep going back to the cornerbacks. They have enough bodies and decent bodies outside of maybe Darrell Luter because he's unproven that they can mix things up. They're going to have probably 5 activated. Luter will probably be on inactive again, that they can throw Rock Ya-Sin or Renardo Green out there if they want to give different looks. And the D line is going to be patchwork until they figure out not only who they want to elevate, but who are they actually bringing up to the active roster, because they're probably not going to make that decision until Saturday also. So yeah, it's the same song and verse as the Rams in terms of, yeah, they're banged up. Yeah, they line up 11 guys across from New England on O&D that they're clearly more talented than. This is an even, I mean, I don't know if you agree, but I mean, this is an even bigger embarrassment if they lose this game. I mean, I don't know if it's because it's at home or if it's because New England struggles as badly as they do. Like this is another no excuses type game, right? Like whether it's 3 points or 30 points.
As fans, me and you will say that. As an organization, players will probably be like, well, it's the National Football League. Yeah. Anybody, they'll try to sell you on, the Patriots being just as dangerous as them and all that trash. But yeah, this would be an absolutely colossal failure if they let a team who is this challenge, especially offensively, they're just not good. They don't have talent. if they move the ball up and down the field on you and are getting guys pass interference called on friggin', trashy linebackers and bad cover corners, like, damn, what do we do when we go against a team like the Cardinals in a couple
I know.
weeks with Mighty Mouse back in rare form like he's been?
So
You're
what's
right.
so
This is
what's
going to
the
be a telling game.
it is. I mean, and I wanted to ask. I gave my score prediction. Like, what's your score prediction? And if it's different, then what's the score? If the what's the score that matches up to the performance that you would feel good about, and turn the TV off and finish watching the game and go, that was what I wanted to see from this team.
Like a 34-10 would be a dream finish for me or a dream outcome. But I'm thinking it's going to be more along the lines of like a 31-24 game where the
Oh wow.
defense
Okay.
the
I
defense
thought I was
struggles a little bit.
pessimistic. All right.
Yeah. I think the Niners defense, until proven otherwise, is gonna they're not gonna get a lot of confidence from me. The front doesn't get any pressure. Nobody gets any pressure. There's a couple like offshoot plays where like Bosa gets a couple sacks or this guy gets a couple sacks, but other than that, guys are back there. They could tie their shoes, make themselves breakfast, sit down, stand back up, and still have time to throw. It's embarrassing. For the amount of money that Bosa gets, and people are like, "Wow, he's being triple teamed." There's other rushers in the league that Crosby
Yep.
and JJ Watt and all the other guys, and in Cleveland, who get all the same attention, but yet are able to impact games. For some reason, Bosa, he's constantly falling down or over rushing and over pursuing. Like, come on, man! Like, let's do this. Kill the narrative that you're like your brother, that you got fat and happy with a paycheck, and now
Yep.
you're just like whatever. Because it's starting to happen. People are starting to say, is Bosa kind of like is Bosa checked out, as far as like he's got paid and now it's like, whatever.
Boy, I hope not for any of these players. Like how much for players that have been on the team that lost the 2 Super Bowls to the Chiefs, how much it probably still stings. And I still believe, like, we as fans, in some ways, or some fans probably think and dwell on those Super Bowls more than players do. Players
I'm
probably move
starting.
on, they get paid, they're like, "Oh, that's," and they're the ones getting the ring, not us. So it's kind of weird and crazy to say, but fan is short for fanatic. So I can see some people, like, replaying the Super Bowl in their head while they're sleeping 3 years later. Like, yeah, and I think about it. I still haven't been able to go back and rewatch the most recent one against the Chiefs. I just
I saw
couldn't. I
some
mean,
plays pop up on my television and I'm like, if I had a gun, I'd shoot my TV like this. I don't want to see this.
no, but that's got to be driving force number one, Kansas City. But close second, because it's so new and so fresh, has got to be the Rams. I mean, I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall for that film session for every unit, every position group, because I mean, the offense looked good, of course, but when you get to defense and special teams, what they put on film against backup players, preseason offensive roster, was ridiculously unacceptable. And whoever they shuffle in on the D line, corner, linebacker stepping in for Greenlaw, Winters, or Campbell, no excuse. Again, no matter who you're bringing in is better than who you're facing. So, like you said, like, I don't want to hear it. Any given Sunday, yeah, I get all that, but that's only if turnover, like if Brock throws 2 picks, if the Patriots get a pick 6, a fumble recovery for a touchdown, a kickoff return. Like, the way I think I talked about earlier was the only way I see them beating the Niners is the way the Bears beat the Titans week 1. Like, they need a pump block for a touchdown. They need a pick 6 for a touch. Like, Caleb Williams did nothing. Like, they did not score an offensive touchdown. That's, to me, the only way they win. And it's probably not going to play out that way. But everything else that the Niners defense needs to do that we're talking about, we almost need to see it to a T. It can't be like we come on next Thursday, or when you're talking with your other host, going like, you know what, that was 50% better. Like, it can't be 50%
Yeah,
better.
you can't have a game where the Niners come out with their hair on fire for 2.5 quarters, and then more of the same mistakes happen. More of the blown coverages, the special teams gaffes. Like, it's got to be a complete whole game, complete like a whitewashing of this team.
Yeah.
Who's you're clearly better than. I don't want to hear, like you said, I don't want to hear all like, well, it's the NFL, and like nobody wants to hear about that because, dude, the Patriots. probably won't win more than 4 games this year, 6 games this year. They're not a good team. They don't have a lot of talent. Yeah, like I said, nobody's feeling sorry for them. But there's only so many times you could sell me on this being the NFL and then everybody gets paid trash until you start saying, yeah, you're really underperforming and you got a lot of high priced guys that aren't doing their job. So we'll see, man. When I see you next Thursday, we're either going to be, I wouldn't say I'd be too much happier because it's only 2-2, but I'll definitely be in a better mindset, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to know what 1-3 feels like, and I'm not even on that.
I don't either.
I just don't want to know what it feels like.
Real quick before we get out of here, Niners have been doing some stuff in practice with Spencer Burford taking snaps at right tackle. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh, no, I did not.
Yeah. They were talking about it in practice that Spencer Burford has been taking snaps at right tackle. I mean, yeah. That instills a ton of, McKivitz, Burford, like what's the difference,
Well, they did sign that tackle Hubbard back to their practice squad. I mean, they obviously have Jalen Moore, and I guess they're completely fixated on him not being a swing tackle. He's just Trent Williams' backup, which defeats the purpose of having, I guess, or thinking about someone as a swing tackle. Whatever. As iffy as McKivitz is at times, I would feel less confident with Burford coming in. I know we're all living in the post.
He did play right tackle in college, though. I guess he played tackle in college. Yeah.
Oh, he did play. Yeah. In Texas, San Antonio, or wherever he went. But they need someone more legit. I don't even want, that's gonna give me nightmares. I didn't even know about that. Like, I'm probably gonna dream about
I saw that probably an hour before it came on. So sorry to ruin your weekend.
Thumbs up and thumbs down all at once.
Yeah, it's all at the same time. All right, everyone, we're going to get out of here. Thanks for supporting the stream. For those of you who watched either on Twitter or on YouTube, we appreciate it. We'll be back, me and 49ers Plus Pod, next Thursday. We got to think of an interesting name to call a podcast, or maybe get an intro all our own. I don't know. We'll have to figure something out. But take care, everyone. We'll see you later. Everyone, have a great rest of your Thursday. See ya.
Take care.